you ever found that writing the same code boring and thought if there is magic shortcut that writes the code and boom, the code Android Studio writes it for you? Indeed, there is one. Let me show you some example. Typing the same code over and over again kills me off. So let's see some example here in Android Studio. Now let's write up some code here, and we're going to use this live template in order to achieve this code, and it's going to save you a lot of time. So without further ado, let's see here some examples. Now, for example, if you want to create a function here, you just write the fun keyword, and you can see here there are things which are going to pop up. Now, if you come here to this fun 0, you can see that it's going to give you that this is going to be the function with no parameter, and there is something which is going on here. We are going to see this later. Now, for now, if you press tab here, it's going to autocomplete and give you this function here. Now you can provide here the name of the function. Now I'm going just to give this my function and press enter. Now if you don't want to return anything, just press enter, and then it's going to go inside the curly braces. Now if you create here some room and want to write some code here, now if you, for example, we create here a variable. Now for example, this one we're going to call this variable a, and this one is going to be of type string. Then we are going to keep this to null. Now there is a shortcut if, for example, we want to check this variable is going to be null or not, and for this case you can just write in, and then if you press tab here, it's going to autocomplete and use that variable and check if this variable is going to be null. It's not going to be not null, then it's going to enter in this function here. And now here you can just write your code. Now if this a is not going to be null, for example, here you want to print out, so you can use this sort, and then you can just write here sort, and then it's going to bring this println function here, and you can keep this a and print it if it's not going to be null. Now as you have seen here, now you have created this function with just one parameter. Now for example, if you want to pass in a function that has multiple parameters, you want to pass it in here. Now if you write function here also, you can see that there is this pop-up here, and if you press tab, it's going to autocomplete and bring up this code here. Now you can just easily provide here, for example, we are going to call this minus, and now this one is going to act as a minus function. Now for example, if x, then we are going to keep this as an integer, and then we want this to be a nullable type, and here we can keep it int. Now we don't want to return anything. Now for example, here if you want to perform calculations for this using x, now there is another shortcut which, for example, if you pass in this if ends, so it's going to use the nullable type. If this one is going to be null, then we want to return, for example. If not, we want to take x plus y, and just you are good to go. Now let's go to the part of composable. There are several functions which I'm going to show you where you can see all of these, and you can create your custom ones in order to suit your coding style. Now for example, if you want to create composables, now if you write here comp, you can see that there is a pop-up which is going to come up, and this comp here is going to create a composable, and it's going to create here a composable function. Now if you write here at composable, then it's going to autocomplete, and now you can pass in here your name of the function. So I'm just going to call this comp. Now let's create here some room. Now for example, here if we create a text, and then we pass in here, for example, a string. Now we want here now to add a modifier, and there is just a simple way. For example, if you want to add padding to this modifier, now we can just write paddp, and here we have this one is going to add a padding modifier in dp, and now you just have here your padding. Now for example, if you want 16 dp, and now you're just good to go and import these values. Now as you have seen there, you have added the modifier with padding. Now for example, if you want to add a modifier with weight, you just write here weight, and now you have added just a modifier with weight. Now for example, if you want to create a function that is going to a composable function which is going to have several parameters, now you have to create this using this way, and inside the composable there is no this function, so we can create a custom one. And indeed you can just come here and see different values which are going to be created. Now let's see how these templates are defined here inside Android Studio. Now if you press Ctrl-Alt-S or you go to the IDE setting, you can see that there are a bunch of parameters here. Now if you come here to this, you can come here to this editor, And then you can come here, you can see there is this live template here. Now if you click this live template here, it's going to take you here to several functions which have been defined here. You have Android component, and if you collapse this or open this, you can see that there are several things which have been defined. Now if you come here now, for example, we want to come here to Android Compose, and if you come to this composable, you can see that it has added here the composable, and here there is something which is going to be used, and you can see here they have added here a function, and this function here has a name and also has this end, and this end is going to be a special parameter inside this way of defining template. This is going to define where the cursor will be placed when you have finished or you have placed the tab. Now if you come here, you can see that there is something which is going here, expand with tab. Now if you press this expand with tab here, you can see you can just define anything. If you want to expand with space, tab, enter, or none. Now we want to use just the default here when you want to expand this. Now if you come here to Kotlin, pure Kotlin here, and then you can come here, we want to define this function, a composable function with 2 parameters. Now we can use this as inspiration and create our own function. Now you can see here there is this name here, and also there is something which is called parameter 1, and then here they have added the parameter 1 type, parameter 2, and parameter 2 type, and here they have placed the return function, and here there is this special parameter which is called end, which is going to signify that where the cursor is going to be placed. Now if you come here, I have already defined here the composable way of defining these 2 parameters. Now I have made this to be comp2, and if you come here, I think you are not going to see it because it's not been created by default. Now you can try and create your own by calling this comp2, for example. Now if you come here, you can see that I have signified that we want to define the function name. Then I have provided here the parameter 1 type, and also parameter 2 and parameter 2 type. And because these composable functions are not going just to return anything, so they are going to return unit, we are not going to add here a return function or a return parameter, and we signify where our cursor is going to be placed. Now if you place this like this, it's going just to not show those x and y parameters or defining here the type parameter. Now if you come here to this edit variable, and then you can see here it's going to show up all of those parameters which have been found inside your code. And now if you see here, now you can provide here the expression. For example, if you have an expression which is going to be defined inside the function, and this one you're going to see later. Now here is going to define default values. Now if you define here default values, for example here in parameter 1 we want this to be a, and here the parameter type we want this to be any, and here the parameter 2 to be b, and here any if you wish. And also you can just click this skip if defined. So if anything is going to be defined, then it's going to skip up, and you can just press OK. Now after that, you can provide here a description, and here you can see there is something which is called abbreviation, which is going to be the shortcut which you want. Now here I have provided comp2. Now for example here we can just create here, we can write the description so that it's going to show up when a user is going to use this to understand what is going to be created. So we are going to write here create. So it's going to create a comp function with parameters. Now you have to select here this reformat code according to style. Now before we click apply here, you can come here to this applicable, where it's going to be applicable. Now you can click this here because you're going to see here define context, for example in your case. Now you can see here there is here you can select everywhere, or you can just select a specific place. Now for our case here, we're going to select this Kotlin, and after that you're going just to click apply, then you're going to click OK. So this one is going to be applied in this Kotlin function. Now if we write here comp2 now, it's going to define here our composable function. Now we want to pass in here, for example, now we are going to define this to be, if you want to change this one, you can just, for example here, you can change this. Now if you don't want that, when you press enter here, it's going to come here. You can just press Ctrl Alt S, and then when you come here to this comp2, you can come here to edit variables, and then you just use this skip if defined, because it's going just to skip directly to the end parameter. So if you just define this name, then these parameters have already been defined by default. Then it's going to come here to end, and we just click here apply and OK. Now for example here, now if we come to create comp2, now as you have seen, now it's going to move up to this. So for example, this one we want to be C. Now let me show you here an example of creating your own template. Now we want to create a template. For example, here we are going to create a column. Now we want to create this column here. So if you are just creating a column which is going to arrange center, and here arrange center horizontally, for example, you are just creating a lot, so you're just going to have a lot of boilerplate codes. Now I'm going to show you how you can create this, and it's just really simple. You have to define this also with their imports. For example, here now, if you press if you press Alt Enter, it's going to bring this, and you can just use this add full qualifier and press Enter. Now it's going to add this one, and also here we want also to add this add full qualifier, and also here you can just press Alt Enter, and you have this full qualifier. Now you can copy this, and then you can press Ctrl Alt S. So that we are going to define here a new, and then we can come here to composable. Inside here you can click this button here, and then you can see here we have live template and template group. So the difference between this one, we are going to create a template inside a certain template group. Now this template group here is, for example, this here Android Compose is just the template group, then it contains several templates. Now let's click here one, because we want to create a template, and it has given here abbreviation. Now for example, here we want to write this just CC, for example, for column centered, and then you can just write here. Now if you come here, you can just press Ctrl V and you paste this code, because here you just don't have that auto completion. So you can just write inside here the IDE and copy the code, and then you can come here and paste your code. And now you can signify here by using those $2 signs. Now if you write this $2 sign here, and for example if you write here end, so the cursor is going to come directly here. And after that, if you have variables, now you have to define here also because it has given us no applicable context. And if we define here, we want this one to be inside the Kotlin. After that, you have also to select this reformat according to style, so that it can reformat automatically. And now after that, you can click apply and click OK. Now inside here, our composable, we can just write here CC. And if we press tab here, it's going just to create this column. And now you have this here, your code, and start coding, writing here text. Now I want to show you another thing which is going to be crucial here to save you a lot of time. Now for example, if you have here a lot of composables, for example, I have just created here a lot of text for demonstration purposes. Now if you come here and you just copy this, highlight this, we want to create a selection and surround this inside, for example, inside the column or inside the row or inside anything which we want to surround with. Now if you want to do this, there is just a simple shortcut that you can utilize. If you press Ctrl Alt J here, you can see there is something which is going to pop up, select template, and this one here wants you to select. If you select W here, it's going to surround with the widget, and if you select WR, it's going to surround with row. Now we want to surround with row, and as you have seen here, directly boom, and your code is just surrounded with that. And there is a special parameter which you can define your own. Now if you come here, for example, and highlight this, I have defined one. If you press Ctrl Alt J and then you come here to this SF here, I have added surround with scaffold. Now let's create here, for example, if you want to surround with the surface. Now as usual, we are just going to delete this, and then we want to create here a surface. Now let's copy this here, and now we are not just going to copy all of this function here, we want just this here header. So we copy this here and press Ctrl Alt S, and then we come here to this Android Compose. Now you can see here we have something, this WC here, surround with column. And if you see here, there is a selection parameter, and this one signifies that this is just a special function, a special parameter that is going to tell the editor that this is going to be surrounded with what we have been selecting. Now let's create here our own, which is going to be surrounded with the surface. Now let's create here this live template, and after that here, now we can just call this. Now, after we define this, if we just leave at ease, it's going just not to place anything here. So we want to define here this one to be a parameter. So we can come here to this edit variable, and then we come to this part of expression. Now you have to put these double quotes here, and then we are going to paste what we wanted to be here. Now after that, we press OK, then we press apply, and we press OK again. Now let's create here a bunch of text. Now, if also we want to surround this, we are going to press here Ctrl Alt J, and then we have here our WC. Oh, we have forgotten something. Now let's press Ctrl Alt S because we have not defined the context. So if we come here, no applicable context, let's keep this with Kotlin here. Don't forget about that because it's just not going to be shown. Now let's also highlight here and press Ctrl Alt J, and now we have here WS. Now let's click this. As you have seen here, now we have created the surface directly inside here. Now let me show you the real deal. Now for example, if you want to create a class that is going to contain several functions and other things, for example a room, a DAO, for example other things which you want to create, that by default just you access that file and boom, it's just created. And it's really simple just to create here. If you come here, for example new, and then you come here, you can see I have defined here several things, but this one are not going to be available to you. For example, we have here the DAO, we have the view model. Now for example, if you select this view model here, it's going to tell you to provide the file name. Now for example, I'm just going to call this my view model for demonstration purpose and click OK. Now it has just created here a class which is of view model. So if you have anything which you want to create, for example here we want to create a state, I have just created this function here, this template, and then you can just create, for example here, a function. Or if you want to create state, just you can define your composables, or you can define your live template inside there and create this as how I have demonstrated previously. Now for example here we want to create a DAO. If you come here to new, then you come to this DAO here, you can see here it's different from that one. We have defined here parameters. Now for example here we want to call this to do. Now because I have not created the to-do class, it's just going to highlight this here. Now as you have seen here, it's just really quickly. Now if you want to duplicate and create your own here, let's just replace this. So you can just create here your class with something like this, then you can copy them, you can press Ctrl C, then now you can press Ctrl Alt S. Now if you come here to file and code template, now leaving here the live templates, you can come here to files and code templates. You can find here there are several files inside here. Now you can see those which you have defined, for example here. Now let's come here and create, for example we want to create a new function. So if you want to create here a new file, you can just click this here, but there is preliminary code which has been written here. You can just use, for example, if you come here to this Kotlin, now we want to create an interface. Now you can come to this Kotlin interface here. You can see there is a preliminary data which has been added, and you can click this button here, copy template. Then it's going to duplicate and create a copy of this, so you don't have to write all of these here. Now you can just paste, for example here, let's just copy this. What we want just is this one. And after that, at the top here, you can define at DAO. And then you can paste in here your methods. Now, as we did with those live templates here, you can see it's just a little bit different. Now, if you want to define a parameter, you have to use this $sign and two curly braces here and provide a parameter. Now, for example, here we want to provide an entity class. So we know the return type here is going to be an entity class, so that's why we are calling here an entity. Now, if you come here, for example, to this insert here, now you can provide here also that parameter name. And as you have seen here, we are just using this underscore because it's just going to be replaced with the space here, and this is just the naming convention of this style here. Now, also here we want to use the entity class. So we are just going to copy this and we are going to pass in here the entity class. Now we want here also to pass in Now, I think here we are done. After that, you have just to provide here your name. For example, here we can just call this DAO2. And also here, because we have copied this one, it has provided the extension here, which is .kt, and you can use this reformat according to style. And there is a description here. You can just read. There are several things like a documentation which give you something which you can use it. Now place here apply and place OK. Now after that, if we come here to this and place here new, then we have this DAO2. Now let's click this DAO2 here. Now we can provide a file name. For example, here we're going to call this DAO2. So we want to provide here the where name. Now, as you have seen here, now we have just added here as usual and just really simple, and you can try to import here. And if you press Ctrl Alt S here, you can see if you come here to this DAO2, you can see here we are repeating this entity class. And if you repeat this variable here in any place, so the same one where you're going to type this entity class is going just to be added to all of these places here. So guys, as you have seen here, you can define your templates and you can code fast and you become unstoppable. And you can just take inspiration from those predefined templates which have been defined by Android Studio. So guys, let's leave it here. If you find this video helpful, please provide that like button and subscribe for more video. And if you like this video, check these other videos here. Bye bye for now. See you in the next video.